you expect anybody or no?
I didn't think it'd be. Whoops. Yep.
Taking any action?
No. All right. We will convene this March 5th, 2019 annual city meeting public information hearing at 5:05. We still need to do all the approval of agendas and everything, I assume. So is there a motion on the agenda? Councilor Busher?
Second.
I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second, sorry.
Moved by Councilor Busher, seconded by Councilor Tracy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have our agenda.
Do you want to pledge?
And yes, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and
justice for all. Okay. First item on the agenda is number one is the approval of the school budget for fiscal year 2020. Nathan Lavery come on up and tell us a little bit about this.
The school budget ballot question, board will recall that this is brought to your attention in the past. The ballot question calls for a total budget of just about $88.7 million. The state mandated ballot language can be a little bit confusing, but the questions were most commonly asked is how much did the budget increase? And that, in terms of the total budget, that was about a 4.36% increase. And then people also ask, what is the tax impact of that increase? And for property taxpayers, the estimate we're using is 4.86% increase. And for income payers, that it is a 0.43% increase. Those figures, particularly the property figure is, well, really both of them are subject to change based on still a few outstanding factors, one being equalized pupil counts, which were very late in kind of being ironed out by the state this year for a variety of reasons. At this point, while we haven't, the dust hasn't settled on that, it's moving in the right direction, so I think there's a fair chance that when the dust does settle on that front, the equalized pupils for the Burlington School District will go up, meaning that the tax rate change will actually decrease slightly. So this is one of those areas where I think most of the risk, so to speak, is moving in the right direction for us. But again, all of this is subject to change, as well as obviously changes that could be made by the legislature and governor reaching different agreements on things like the dollar yield and that sort of thing.
All right, thank you. And City Attorney, we should invite the public on each item or at the end of all of them, at each one?
I think at each item makes sense.
Okay. Is there any comments or questions from the public on item number one, dealing with the school budget for fiscal year 2020? Hearing none. All right. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you.
Item number two is an increase in the maximum tax rate for general city purposes. Is that one going to be from the CAO, Beth Anderson?
Please. Great. So this question asks for an increase in the general city tax rate to be increased by $0.0125 from $0.2604 to $0.2729, which represents a 1.5% increase in the FY19 from the FY19 tax rate.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the public on item number two, the maximum tax rate for general city purposes for this year?
President,
Councilor Busher.
can I just, before Nathan leaves, and can I just get clarity?
Certainly.
Because I do get asked this question. If the public votes for this, this is the maximum that you can tax, but you don't necessarily have to call up that entire amount. Can both of you speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. With respect to the school portion, that is not how it works. It's different
Okay.
from the municipal side, where I believe that is the case. But for the schools, what we are saying is, this is what will happen. Really, what we are, the main issue is how much money does the school district get from the state education fund? And that number will be fixed. We will get that amount of money. The tax rate impacts, as I said, are the product of a few variables, a couple of which could potentially change. So it's subject to change for that reason, but it's not subject to change because we'll say, well, we don't need this money or that money, or we need more money. We don't have either of those options.
Okay, thank you. Could the CAO respond to that question?
CEO Anderson?
Thank you.
Yes, so ours is slightly different in that the public would be approving a taxing authority. We do not have to tax to that authority. And in fact, for the past number of years, so for fiscal years 17, 18, and the current fiscal year 19, we are not taxing to the full authority. So what we do, as you're well aware, is each year as we go through the budget review and approval process, we determine what we do need to spend to cover the basic city operations and tax for the amount we need to cover. And when we don't feel that we need to, we do not tax to that full authority. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank-
I hope that the people that have asked that question have a chance to watch this.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Busher. So with City Attorney Blackwood.
Could I just add one clarification for the public that might be confused about this? For the school, the public votes on the budget. So what you're voting on is the budget, the amount that the school is spending. For the city council creates and approves the budget. The voters don't vote on the budget, just on the tax rate. So that's why these are different.
Also a good clarification. Anything else? Okay, so we did do if anyone who wanted to speak or comment on item number 2, but you'll need to do it in front of the microphones, yep.
Hi, Ann Barton, Ward 4, also a city employee.
And you need to pull the microphone in.
Sorry.
It's okay.
And I really wanted to comment, since you brought it back open, about the school department and having an understanding of that. And obviously, I think I need to get more involved in it, because it's very frustrating as a taxpayer that every single year continually, more money is asked for. And I really feel like a complete evaluation of their budget is necessary, because I feel like every year we continually just, hand over money. So with that said, I'll move on to the second thing. And from working at the city, I know how difficult it is to make the decision to raise taxes even a little teeny bit. But seeing the last few CAOs come in and what we've gone through to try to make a budget balance without a tax increase, literally going through every single line item of every single person's budget, right down to their office supplies, and asking them if they really need that extra $100. So I am definitely in support of this tax. Honestly, I think it probably could have been more than that. We really could use more than that. But I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Ms. Barton. Appreciate it. Okay, anyone else on that item? Hearing none, we will go to item number 3, and that is a proposed charter change to create Department of Permitting and Inspections and make zoning administrator and planning director mayoral appointments rather than be appointed by the Planning Commission as it is now. And Brian Lowe and Bill Ward here to present on this one. Gentlemen,
We have a 45-minute presentation prepared for you, Council President Wright.
I only gave you a half an hour.
The third question is about creating a new permitting and inspections department, which would directly address concerns that have endured about the city's permitting process for decades. The proposal is to merge 3 existing components of different departments into one department. That would be the ISD, the Inspection Services component of DPW, Director Bill Ward's Code Enforcement Office, and the zoning portion of planning and zoning into one department, and locate that department at 645 Pine Street.
Anything for Mr. Ward?
I would just say that we've presented this both at a few different public forums, and I wanted to be available in the event that people had specific questions about the overall item or things that they've seen at other meetings that they didn't get a chance to, whether it's counselors or members of the public.
Thank you both, and again, as I've said before and others have, thank you for the great work on this from both of you and other department heads as well. Questions? Anyone in the public who would like to speak on this charter change or ask any questions? Any city councilor? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll close item number 3. Item number 4 is the proposed charter changes to strengthen and restructure the Downtown Improvement District. Councilor Roof, are you going to speak to that one?
I wasn't aware that I would be, but I'm certainly happy to. Also, I think Attorney Blackwood
City
might be
Attorney Blackwood.
good to do that as well.
Okay. City Attorney Blackwood, and if Councilor Roof would like to add comments?
Yes, that'd be fine. This question looks at the Downtown Improvement District. Currently, the city charter sets out a Downtown Improvement District that is limited to providing funding for the free parking, 2-hour free parking program. And this is expanding both what that Downtown Improvement District does and expanding the boundaries of that district. So first, it expands when you look at the short form question on the ballot, you will see a list of the major things because this is a very long charter change, we had to do a short form question to make sure that we could fit it on the ballot. Please make sure that you look at the official copy of the charter changes because that has all the language of for the entire district. But the summary of the changes are that it expands the boundaries, it redefines the purposes of the DID so that it is doing much more like what the Church Street Marketplace Commission and District currently do, but it does it for the larger area of the whole Downtown Improvement District area. There's also there's a lot of information about this charter change up on the city's website. On the elections page, you will see there's information concerning the ballot questions, and if you click on that, you can get to specifics, and in this particular instance, there are quite a number of documents leading up to the adoption of this new language. It will establish a nonprofit entity to manage this DID and replace the Church Street Marketplace Commission. So everyone should be clear that this DID is going to replace the Church Street Marketplace Commission. The change goes on to describe the powers and duties of the nonprofit entity and the relative powers and duties of the City Council within that DID. The City Council is going to continue to have the authority in the city and all of its city departments to conduct all of the general government services that the city has been doing. This district will create a special assessment fee on certain of the non-residential properties within the DID area that will be used by that nonprofit entity to address the purposes of the DID. So the money that is raised from this special assessment, so this is not being paid for by all the taxpayers, but by certain properties within the DID, and those properties will pay that special assessment into the city, which will then turn the money over to the DID to administer the purposes of the DID. The city will continue to provide the services that it provides to other taxpayers as well. This also provides a process for appeals and for abatement requests for property owners who have circumstances that warrant those. It creates a provision for enforcement and collection of that fee, and it deletes provisions of the article related to the prior DID in Church Street Marketplace. It does have a sunset provision that will automatically end the DID after 10 years if it is not renewed. So all of that is a general, very broad overview of the DID change that is proposed.
And so the council at that time, 10 years from now, will have to take an action to renew it.
Correct. The council would take action to renew it. In addition, what I didn't mention is that if if the voters pass this authorization, it then, like other charter changes, goes to the legislature and the governor has to sign it. Once that is done, then the folks that are organizing the DID and the charter change lays out who those folks represent. They will negotiate with the city council or with the city and come to the city council with things like their bylaws, with a management plan, and other details of their operations.
Thank you. Councilor Roof, did you want to make any remarks?
I think that was a good rundown, yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. And open that up to the public. Any comments or questions from the public? Ms. Barton, come on up.
I just wanted to say I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this. I didn't hear a lot about it before it was placed on the ballot. I found it really difficult to read the document that was online. It was probably 20-something pages, and a lot of things are underlined, a lot of things are crossed out. So at the end, I was asking myself, what is this really going to do? As someone who works with the different departments here, I'm curious as to how this is going to affect traffic, because it talks about parking, but yet traffic is in charge of the parking garages. So it seems like there might be a little bit of a conflict with how this could potentially be managed as well.
Anyone can respond to that? Councilor Roof or City Attorney Blackwood?
I think and just correct me if I'm wrong here, City Attorney Blackwood, but the proposal as it's written does not cede any power that is typical for the city. So the city will maintain all of its authority around parking and transportation. This district will not have any special privileges or rights around managing the rights of way, whether they be on the street or sidewalk or anything like that. So any issues around parking will still remain issues to be directed towards those who manage those assets and policies. The district could potentially help to fund things, but not manage things in the way that the government does.
So my other question is, because Eileen, you had said that this is going to be funded through a special assessment. So that means that the taxpayers that are in this district are going to fund all activities, and then there's not going to be any contributions from the city?
Correct, there will be no contributions from the city, and the in terms of that special assessment fee to the to this new DID nonprofit entity, that the city will get a fee for collecting the money from the special assessment. So there will be a fee to the clerk treasurer's office, for example, for the time to collect the fees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I think it is, I mean, for voters that are trying to look at that document, I think it probably can be confusing to have all the cross-outs and is there any way to have a version that doesn't have that? Or, I mean, I know the cross-outs are stuff that is eliminated, obviously, so it may be impossible.
Right, if people think it would be helpful, we could put a totally clean version up as an alternative, but I don't want to mislead anybody, because it's important to look at the changes and see what the existing charter language says and what is being changed.
Councilor Roof?
I would just request, if a clean version is put on, just on that document somewhere, to note just what you just said, because I do think that it's just as important for folks to recognize what the strikeouts are than what's left over. So I just want to make sure that is, I would request that a note be on that document somewhere, or maybe multiple times, just to reference those changes.
Councilor Shannon?
Thank you for raising the point. I actually had requested a clean copy for myself because I found it difficult. And maybe if we can leave the leave up the one that has all the changes in it, which is important, and then also and label each of them that one has all the changes and one is a clean copy of the current proposal. That would be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Shannon. I think that is a good idea. I support it as well. Councilor Busher?
I just want to wait. Okay.
CEO Anderson is suggesting I clarify that all this information is on the city's website. So if you go to elections, and then there's a little, I don't know what you call them, a link that you can click on that says information about ballot questions, and if you click on that, you will see, and it'll have all of the questions we're going over tonight, including this one. And then if you click on this one, that is the DID, there's a whole bunch of documents referenced that that led up to this, including a lot of the background information. So I think we can add this to the background information, and we can put on it very clearly that this is, if the changes are adopted, this is what it would look like.
Thank you, City Attorney Blackwood. Councilor Busher?
So I think that would be helpful, but I also know that a lot of people go to the polling place and read the questions, sometimes for the first time. So that's just the way it is. And so I'm wondering if we can have both versions at the polling place. And my question also is, which is separate, which was my original question, is at the polling place, will there be the map that shows the DID as opposed to the language? Because I think the map is really important. The language is challenging. I can never figure it out. I always have to see the map when they say, you know, north here and south here and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so.
We might have to check with the Secretary of State's office about, before we commit to putting those documents at the polling places, because I don't know the answer off the top of my head. We're not allowed to put promotional materials, for example, and these are not, these are informational background, not the actual question that people are voting on, in the sense that the question you're voting on is whether to change the charter. So
But
that's why it shows the changes.
So I don't see this as I see that the language is the short version, but what is being cited by my fellow counselors is the full text of what we're doing. So I don't see that as informational. I see that as relevant and as just the extended language. My question regarding the map is just further clarity to explain the expanded boundaries, which I think is also germane. It's not, it's relevant to the question. So
I fully understand and agree with you. We just have to check with the Secretary of State's office to make sure we're not stepping over the bounds of what we can have.
okay.
there.
So
It
hopefully
makes total
they-
sense.
Okay, hopefully they will, or the person that we check with will agree, and that will be available for people at the polling place. Thank you.
We all set on what we're doing on that? All right, thank you. Item number 6 is the proposed charter changes to eliminate the business personal property tax. Is that presentation being done by CAO Anderson?
So this ballot item asks to eliminate the business personal property tax, which is a tax that we charge in Burlington on the non-property assets businesses maintain. And it seeks to eliminate the tax in or phase it out in 2 steps. The first step would be for fiscal year 2020 to apply there is currently a $45,000 exemption that applies to some businesses, not all. We would ask to apply that exemption to all businesses to make it more of a level field. And then the goal would be with fiscal year 2026 to eliminate the tax entirely. And at that time, there would be a loss in revenue to the general fund. However, that is the same year where the waterfront TIF will expire, and there will be more offsetting tax revenues coming into the general fund to offset the loss.
Thank you. Open it up to the public first. Any comments or questions for us from the public on this charter change, proposed charter change? All right, hearing none. Any comments from councilors or questions? Councilor Jang?
Yep, thank you. Anderson, can you please come back to the amount of taxes that the city is currently collecting from that? How much is it?
It's approximately 1.2, I don't have an exact, it's about $1.2 million right now.
And now, if the TIF district money start to kick in, will we have a gap? And if yes, how much of a gap it will be?
So it's hard to project because I don't know exactly what the business assets that we will be taxing in 2025 are, so I can give you estimates but not exact numbers. We estimate that with the application of the exemption for next year, for 2020, it's about $125,000 in lost tax revenues. There will be a change in the tax revenue from this tax in 2022 when we do the assessment on property, because we're expecting the reappraisal will lead to a decrease in the tax rate, but it will not change the asset value for these assets because they're not they are currently at market value. They won't be reappraised. So there's about, I'm sorry, I want to check the number, about $268,000 loss in 2022. That's not because of the elimination of this tax, but that will kind of leads into the final answer. Then in 2026, when we would see full elimination of this tax, it's about another $865,000 loss, and we estimate that the TIF proceeds will be about $900,000. So it would cover the loss in that year.
And last question. On top of your head, do you know what was the surplus from the general fund of FY18? The surplus of the city? Do you remember? It was 800,000 or something, or less?
It depends on how you look at that number, so it's a slightly hard answer for me because it depends on which funds you're looking at to go in the health fund.
And you know, your memo, I still think about it. It was really well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jang. And the 2026 date, it actually could be earlier, right?
I apologize. Yes, it gives the opportunity to eliminate it sooner if we.
As early as 2024?
It does. I don't think we've set
Okay.
any limit on when. It just says it could be done sooner by action of the council.
Okay, thank you. So, unless anyone else has any questions, we'll close that item and go to the final item, which is the advisory ballot question regarding single-use plastic reduction policy. And I recognize Councillor Shannon to give us a description of this one.
Thank you. This is an advisory question that is simply meant to gauge public support for either banning or taxing single-use plastics, specifically plastic bags, plastic stirrers, plastic straws, styrofoam food containers, but not limited to that. A vote on this doesn't in and of itself change anything, but give the council guidance so that we would be advised to proceed with creating ordinances that would be in support of this ballot measure.
And as you said, Councillor Shannon, we would still have to work through what that ordinance would entail.
All of the specifics.
Working with the business community and anyone else that was interested.
Anyone we want to work with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open it up to the public. Is there any comments or questions for us on this advisory question? Ms. Barton, come on up.
Well, the only public here.
No, you're fine. We appreciate it.
My only comment would be that if this does pass and you're considering how you're going to deal with that it would not be a tax, because I just feel like as a state and as a city, we're just so taxed so heavily already that there would be another way of dealing with it. So.
And that's just a comment?
Yeah.
No question. Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else on this one? All right. Hearing none, unless the council has anything. Councillor Jang.
Councillor Shannon, it looks like this is an advisory charter change?
This is an advisory. It's not a charter change. It's an advisory. It's just an advisory question.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Unless there's anything else from councilors or the public, we will close out this public informational hearing and move to adjourn. Councillor Shannon, second by Councillor.
I know I look like Councillor Shannon, but
Oh,
I'm Councillor Busher.
Councillor Busher.
It's the eyes in the back of his head. I raised my hand too.
Councillor Busher. and seconded by Counselor Jang. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone
Aye.
opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.